back to 10 Cent Opinions. My name is Noah, or Argel, and this week's episode was on gaming soundtracks. See, gaming soundtracks are an integral part of gaming culture, in fact, with large amounts of people actually working on remixes and making a living that way. We're not only talking about remixes today, we also wanted to talk about how a game can use its soundtrack to add on to the experience they're trying to convey, and how some games can use music to create a game in and of itself. But on that note, I'll leave you. So without further ado, here is 10 Cent Opinions. Enjoy. Hey, welcome back to 10 Cent Opinions. Today with me, I've wrangled up a bunch of nerds. I've got Coltan.
Hola.
And Xander.
Bonjour.
Today
When did you become French?
Today.
What are you talking about? He's lived in France his whole life. He's
Of course.
recording from France right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Live from France.
I mean, ask me to name one city from France but Paris, and I wouldn't be able to answer you. But that's because I live in Paris, obviously.
Obviously. French don't actually live outside of Paris. They're only in Paris.
France is Paris.
Yeah, France is Paris. Anyway, so
there's more outside of it, but anyway.
Yeah, so this week's episode we'll be talking about game soundtracks. So there's between the three of us, we have a variety of musical, what's the word I'm looking for? Talent, I guess?
I guess you could say that.
Understanding. Because Colton doesn't really know anything about music beyond classical, and
I feel like I'm being assaulted in this thing.
Good. Go listen to something beyond Mozart.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then on the
Paganini's where it's at, just saying.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with Mozart, but
there's more. I can't argue with you.
No, I'm the host. No one can argue with me. Now
he's not right. You can change your name, Colton.
Yeah, change it from something worse to smiley face. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Xander, who's actively pursuing a musical career, and then I'm somewhere in the middle.
So, yeah. He wants to be an actor in a musical. That's what he means.
No.
In France.
Yeah.
In France. He wants to be a French actor. That's great.
Yes, specifically, I want to play the oboe professionally.
So, I guess we could start with something simple. Do you guys have a favorite gaming soundtrack? Or something that stands out?
I don't know if this is my absolute favorite, but one game soundtrack that really stands out to me is the Halo 2 soundtrack. And that's just because Steve Vai did so much work on it, and that makes it my personal favorite out of the first three Halo soundtracks that came out. If you listen to it, it has a lot of character to it that, the original one has, and that is kind of lost in the third one because they moved to a straight orchestral theme.
Yeah, Halo soundtrack has always been interesting because it has the whole Gregorian chant thing, or at least their main theme, which is funny because you would think that they would go for something sci-fi, but instead they went for something a bit more religious and creepy. Which I guess
it does kind of balance out. The tonality kind of goes into an ominous, what's gonna happen, where are we going, and then the second you hear the first note from the guitar, you kind of get this relief of all the tension that's been building up to that point. And I think that's really neat because then you start getting more and more into it as it continues, and it ends and you're really sad.
As you do.
Kind of like life.
But that sets the tone for Halo's depiction of religion, which is kind of interesting. Because you spend a lot of time just in empty rooms, like forerunner structures and stuff, and other religious buildings.
Right.
Why don't you expand on those elements, Noah? What do you mean by religious elements in Halo?
Well, it just plays off the idea of that Halo is trying to portray about differing religions. Because the whole idea wasn't it as a religious war? The Covenant is just a group of zealous aliens.
Believe themselves to be better than everybody else,
Right.
and because of that, they are bound by their religion to kill everything else, which is where why they're trying to activate the Halos.
It's just like the Crusades.
Halo rings. Yeah, it's exactly like the Crusades.
Just play Halo to shoot things.
Xander doesn't want to learn.
I thought you were the one that was all about thinking in games. I thought you didn't like action games, man.
I do play my fair share of action games, especially in the past. But yeah, whenever I play Halo though, I never paid attention to the story.
It doesn't exactly hit you over the head with it.
Right.
Yeah. It's more about all right, when is this cutscene gonna end so I can go blow stuff up?
Well, yeah, all the Halo I've played, I don't actually own the game, but all the story that I've got is through people online talking about it, not actually from playing it. So Colton,
What's weird is that you don't actually own the game, but you're better than most of us at it.
Oh yeah, I'm amazing. I'll take you all on at once and I'll still win.
Mm-hmm. I can do the same in Call of Duty though. I can snipe you.
Call of Duty doesn't have a soundtrack though. Name one Call of Duty song.
No.
Nobody knows.
Exactly. It doesn't exist.
I bet there's one called Valor. I bet that exists.
I'm gonna look that up right now.
It's like the Marvel music of games. You just can't recall it because it doesn't exist.
If you don't go look at the soundtrack, then you aren't going to remember the name. But if you just heard it, you might recognize it.
So Colton, do you have a favorite soundtrack?
I think I would say that I have a specific one favorite, but I've always appreciated how in gaming they can take a very sort of simple series of notes and then turn that into this very very memorable thing that just kind of sticks with you.
Right, a leitmotif.
Right.
Motif. Why did I think French dessert with that? Anyway,
Xander's he's
I'm
getting
in
taken.
Paris.
But I always really like how in Ocarina of Time the sound design and the music design team had to create every song based off of a very simple like less than 8-note progression.
Right.
And that sort of sticks with you more than a super complex orchestra. But then I think that's also why we were talking about this before the podcast. Why everything is remixed so easily is because there's so much room for expansion on those ideas where a complex song doesn't really have that.
Well, there's that, and then there's also the fact that in old games, because you were forced to use so you had so little room for innovation, you had to create a good. Xander, help me out on this. It's not harmony, but
Right. You had to create a good melody, something
that's it.
that catches on to people's attention. Something that it's kind of the same idea as pop music, although pop music is even to a lesser extent because there's usually a 4 or 5 chord progression that goes along with pop music. But with the old games, they had limited amounts of space to make their music. They had limited amounts of sound because sound cards weren't that great. You plug directly into your TV and hope that sound would come out in the first place. But
yeah, so because you were forced, the sound designers had to make good, strong melodies, which is why we have all these iconic tunes from old 8-bit games. And because they have so much room for expansion, like you said, Colton, and the fact that they're already really good, people can come along and remix them and create really interesting stuff.
Yeah, and there are a lot of really good remixes. In fact, there are some people who make they make a lot of money off of them because they're pretty well known for doing it and they do it well. There's this one guy that does what's his name? His name is like Shady Cicada or something along those lines, and he basically gives little joke tutorials on how to write themes. So like how to write, a theme for a hero, or how to write, a boss fight theme, and he does it all over um, a synthesizer for an orchestra and a guitar. It's really neat, and he's been getting a lot of traction lately.
But this is a bit off topic. What the fuck did I just say? Off topic. This is off topic. But basically,
You're gonna bleep that out?
maybe, I don't know. Doesn't matter.
It's only us watching this anyway.
We've got like 3 subscribers, and it's just the 3 of us.
You have 1 subscriber. That's me.
Alright, go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, although now that you stated that we have no viewers, it's kind of irrelevant. But a lot of remixers do remix game sounds for free because of copyright laws, and so they don't actually get compensation from it half the time. So, like the remixes I put at the end of the video, if you like the songs, you should go check the guys who create them out and show them some love because they deserve it.
Yes, sir. I mean, I bet you they do make some money off ad revenue, though.
Yeah, but if they're not, most of them can't actually sell the song.
Correct.
So back to the light motif that we were talking about earlier, the French dessert.
Uh-huh.
A game that worked.
Well, actually, in France, we don't have any restaurants other than McDonald's, so we only have ice cream, and it's only once a week because the ice cream machines are usually broken, and McDonald's cookies. So.
In fact, most people would think that it's that way because of French fries, but in reality, they only serve tater tots. So,
yeah, in reality, French fries is really a Ugandan thing. So
the more you know.
Mm-hmm.
Ugandan, what? All right. So light motifs. Ugh. You know, the cool thing about gaming is that the music can react to what's happening on the screen. And so you can, there's all sorts of different techniques that the sound creator has to come up with in order to reflect what's happening on the screen. One of them is create light motifs, and the other one would be adaptive soundtracks. But if we talk about light motifs a little bit, basically a light motif is a little chord or a little bit, a little. Xander, help me out. What's the terminology for?
Like a short piece of music?
Yeah, like a short, or just like a measure. There we go. It's a measure.
There you go.
And the game will build upon it as time goes on. Like, Journey starts off with this huge orchestral piece, and then it drops to silence. And then as the game goes on, it slowly builds upon that, adding on new instruments.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something that's really cool about. Sorry, Colton. I'll let you go in just a second. That's something that's really cool about video games, and I feel like another whole point of a soundtrack is to kind of further the story and the progression, or to just emphasize a point. Say you do something, you get rewarded with a little chime, like in Legend of Zelda. It sets the theme for what's happening in the game. A game is kind of bland without a soundtrack. And if you ever know you want to be a game developer, you ever start developing a game and you start playing it, and you can find that it feels a little bit empty without a soundtrack.
Then there's also games that benefit from the lack of soundtrack.
Horror games, definitely.
Well, horror games, yeah. Which is interesting, because I never really think of the horror genre as coming out with good soundtracks. But
right.
I don't know. You play more horror games than me. Do you have any that you can think of?
I don't know. There's really, in a lot of horror games, there's this recurring theme, and basically what's going on is there's a lot of build-up, and there's a lot of build-up, and there's a lot of build-up, and then there's release, and then there's silence. You see that in a lot of horror games because it's really effective. You're expecting something, nothing happens. You're like, oh, nothing's gonna happen, and then that's when they get you. Or just lots of string instruments.
Colton, you were gonna say something earlier? Before Xander
Did
cut you
you
off?
did either of you guys play Journey to Completion?
No, I don't own it. Can I come over to your house
Neither
and we
do
play?
I.
Actually, you mentioned it as like a cited source, but you haven't actually like played it.
No, I've watched a lot of videos on games that I haven't actually played.
One thing is that I really do appreciate the way that this music plays into Journey, because the game in itself is rather boring if you play it on mute or you don't pay super close attention to it. It's really just walking and then a few segments of like stealth gaming. But I think that for such a short game, it has that sort of lasting power because of the music design. Because at the very beginning, you mentioned it's like a sweeping orchestral track, but it's more of a like feeling music, because I think that's
Wait,
kind
can you
of
say that
mirroring
again? You got cut off.
very
Yeah, last
joyful
time we heard was okay.
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay,
music.
you're right. It's not exactly a sweeping music. It's more of a.
But I think that kind of mirrors what our expectations are of the beginning of a game, where it's like, all right, let's do this. Here we go, and then halfway through, you begin to reach this part where your journey gets very sad, and at that point, there's just absolutely no music, and it lasts for. I beat the game in like 2 hours, so it lasts for about 45 minutes at the end.
Mm-hmm.
At that point you're already so invested in this journey that it feels so depressing and this heavy dark ending, and then it's not that long, so I'll say what happens. At the end, it's sort of a heaven at the end, and that is whenever they introduce this huge, very multi intense orchestral piece, and it's super happy and what you would remind like rejoicing would be, and it feels ever so much better because you've had that 45 minutes of silence and then up with that,
Hmm.
which I really appreciated the design in there.
Well, that's kind of the thing about Journey's design in as a whole was it's a perfect example of design by subtraction, where everything in the game that didn't fit towards the theme of the journey was removed. That's why there's no dialogue. That's why the soundtrack builds upon itself. And I watched a analyst video, and he was basically saying that yeah, Journey's soundtrack is a reflection of the hero's journey, on top of the actual things that you're doing in the game being physical representations of the hero's journey. So that's kind of cool.
That is really cool.
But
Mechanics of the game is that like you're trying to make your cloth longer, and it's for some reason you just get really invested in having the longest cloth, and then at the end it like slowly burns.
what?
Yeah, it like you go up this mountain and it freezes and then completely dissipates.
Oh,
And your character dying, and it's the most depressing thing to watch. And I don't think I've ever been like just so emotionally devastated whenever the scarf disappeared.
Rest in peace.
rest in peace, Scarf. A moment of
I have a
silence.
question to add to the discussion.
Go for it.
So think about
Yes,
games
always.
that the main mechanic is music, right? Think about Guitar Hero, Rock Band, rhythm games as well. I can't, like
Dance
Dance
Revolution.
Revolution, yeah,
And then
and
there
the
was
Just
one that
Dance
was
games.
the free game for the month a little while ago by a Japanese creator. It was about like EDM music. Can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name either. But
Like Save
think about
the
why
Internet.
we haven't been seeing quite as many of those games as recently. They promised us Lego Rock Band 2, and there's no Lego Rock Band 2, huh? Where's Lego Rock Band 2? That's what I want to know.
Xander's mad. Well, you had they did re-release, but they released a new version of Guitar Hero, but it flew kind of under the radar. Nobody was really
Right.
talking about it. It might have just been kind of like how when Call of Duty got big, there were just a sea of Call of Duty clones. It might have been like that, where Guitar Hero's popularity has come and gone.
Are you talking about the one that uses a real guitar?
No, that's Rocksmith, and they also it's been 4 years since they've released the last Rocksmith about Rocksmith 2014. But I would say that Rocksmith 2014 is still it's still on all the latest platforms, PC, Xbox, and so has lots of songs and it's still a great program. So it's kind of like a software like using an older software that still works really well. I'd say that one it still holds up. But they used to be releasing quite a few, especially on the DS. There were a lot of rhythm games, and I happen to own a few, including one where you like played this game and you're a guitar guy and you basically went around with a guitar and cut up zombies.
Okay.
So like a Zombie Slayer Dio or something.
The one with the rabbit?
What?
No, am I going insane?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm probably going insane.
You want a motif?
There was a
Go on.
I've heard French desserts are very comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like with Guitar Hero, it's old, or even if it's something that's kind of outdated and not very popular anymore, you can still get the biggest kick out of if you get really into Guitar Hero. It is like an addiction, and it sticks with you for like a solid 2 months until it goes away and you forget about it.
Right.
Which is extremely interesting. Addictive nature to it when I wouldn't have expected that.
Well, yeah, because you're just trying to get the best score and trying to improve yourself. Right? Just kind of like an old arcade game where you wanted to play it again and again until you won.
Or playing it competitively with friends.
Yep.
I think that's something really cool about Guitar Hero, but also Rock Band too, where basically the whole idea is you build a band out of all the materials that you get. You get the drum kit and you get the guitar. I've always wanted to try Rock Band, but I haven't.
But the thing about Guitar Hero is
Rock
that
Band.
it doesn't
Dude,
actually.
we should all play Rock Band, and we should do it on the podcast. It'd be great.
We
That's a good
record
idea.
our horrible playing. I don't know. Actually, I bet we'd be pretty good.
I call guitar.
I want the drums.
Well,
Colton gets vocals off.
Yeah, Colton, sing us a song.
we have a guitar and a bass, so I'll be on the bass.
What about the drums?
On the drums.
You're on drums.
Well, yeah, but if you don't
What
have
kind
You're
of
the drummer.
band has 2 drummers?
So I can't play.
all right.
It's not fair.
What I was gonna say a moment ago was the thing about Guitar Hero is it doesn't have its own soundtrack. It uses actual
Right.
music.
And that's another part of the appeal too. And also think about this, a lot of it uses older music and it's introduced a lot of new music to younger generations. I think that's pretty neat.
I didn't realize that, but I guess you are right. It's got a lot of classic rock.
The Guitar Hero 2 soundtrack had like songs from the 60s and 70s in it.
Yeah, and they were all good. And they also had Through the Fire and Flames, which still is insane. You see guys playing that game online, and they like use their elbow to jerk the flippy thingy, and they'll like use both of their hands to hit all the notes.
Like that was always a super incredible thing, is watch people do it. And then I remember my cousin got really into Guitar Hero. He went on an addictive, and he got to the point where he could actually play the Through the Fire and the Flames, but it was only on medium, and so he hated himself because he couldn't do it on like hard or extra hard.
Poor guy.
Cooler than playing Through the Fire and Flames on Guitar Hero. Learning it on a real guitar.
Whoa!
Yeah.
No,
what were
but
you
he
gonna
was
say?
actually learning the guitar at the time, so he would like learn a song and then he would learn it on the real guitar, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So
I've never tried this, and I haven't played Guitar Hero in a long time, so I couldn't tell you. But did he ever say that one helped the other, that playing guitar helped him play Guitar Hero, or that Guitar Hero helped him play guitar?
I asked him that question while I was watching him play one time, and he said that he finds he can play faster things, but it doesn't necessarily increase his like his natural tendency to screw up,
Yeah,
because he's better at finger placement, but then he can't he still has to be able to
you can't
recognize the
synchronize the
notes, which
pick
take
with,
practice.
yeah. Tell him to stretch his hands every time before he plays. That really helps. And to crack his knuckles. Anyways, Noah was gonna say something.
nice. uh, this is off topic again, but in K-On,
Stop
which is
going off topic.
no, I want to talk about K-On. Let
He's
me
the
do it.
host. He can go off topic all he
K-On
wants.
is a show about a group of high school girls who are in a band, or like a
Oh,
club band, but one of the characters plays guitar. And I never knew this until one of the characters started doing finger stretches. And I'm like, Xander, is this a thing you do? Can you do it like a cute girl?
oh yeah. Like every single time before I play it, and I learned this from Marty Friedman when I went to go see Marty Friedman, because this guy had a question for him, and he said, "Hey, I can't play as fast as I used to when I was a kid. What's going on? I heard you had problems with this." And Marty Friedman said he found that if you just like when you're exercising, if you stretch your hand and put ice on your arm after you play for a long time, it actually helps quite a bit on your on not only the longevity of your fingers endurance, but it helps you play a lot faster. And ever since then, I've been doing that, and I cannot tell you how much it has improved my dexterity.
It's gone up by 2 points, man. Now,
A
what I was
lot more
actually
than
going to
two
say,
points, actually.
that's a D&D joke for you. But what I was actually going to say a little while ago was, thank you.
It's
I'm
so
amazing.
funny.
I just winked at a blank computer screen.
You winked at me.
So what I actually wanted to say was, one soundtrack that I've been dying to talk about is the Breath of the Wild soundtrack. Taking it back to episode 1, because a lot of people hated the Breath of the Wild soundtrack, just because it wasn't as the usual bombastic, complete orchestral track that we found in the other games. But the cool thing about Breath of the Wild soundtrack is that it's subtle, and it plays up the the feeling of this kind of empty, dying world
Yeah,
there's something around every corner. The music will just come and go and pop in and then pop out, but it's always very subtle and
Only a
soft.
stark shift from the rest of the Zelda series, though, because they don't have those memorable tracks that we know. One chord progression from Breath of the Wild. I bet the only one you could do would be the "you're riding a horse across a field" one.
Mm.
Am I right? That's the only one I can remember.
Yeah,
There's the and then there's the Terrytown, and then the actual intro. Although those are more actual songs, but I feel like the soft, subtle notes and the soft music that comes in every once in a while is very calming, and I feel like it works amazing for Breath of the Wild's world, whereas the normal Zelda formula would feel like a bit overkill.
that comes back to what I was saying earlier too. That the soundtrack for a game, really, its whole purpose is to supplement the story, right, and to continue or to reward the player or to emphasize a point. I guess those are the only things I can think of. And I was watching a video on sound designers and how they and they were looking at video game sounds, and one of them was from the old Zelda, and one of them was from the Breath of the Wild, and they actually made a point very similar to yours, Noah, in that the old one was supposed to be when you open a chest, that was a sound, and they were talking about how the old one, it's supposed to be catchy, it's supposed to reward the player, but the new one in the new game that I think was only changed just now in the new game.
Yeah, it's
It's more modern, it's more dark, and it matches the world that it's in.
I still listen to the.
I don't necessarily think that Breath of the Wild is this way, but just for other games in general, I feel like whenever you have a subtle track, you start to blur the lines between a subtle track and a bland track.
Yes,
right.
It's very easy to fall into a bland if it's not well crafted. But I
Zelda
feel like
does that, but yeah. Anyway,
what'd you say?
That Zelda is a bland track.
I disagree.
Left.
Said that. What?
Okay, Colton. What makes it bland?
During the discussion? I'm not saying it's bland.
Oh, I thought you did.
It's not bland.
Oh, okay.
Did my audio cut out?
A bit.
Maybe.
Okay. Well, it's not bland.
All right, cool. You're back on my good side. Now, I was going to say that Journey also runs along that line, where for a while they have a very subtle soundtrack, and like you said, there's a lot of silent music. But Breath of the Wild and Journey, their soundtracks are both created with the game's style and feel in mind, so they don't exactly fall into that trap.
Jesus, I just look up the price for Rock Band 4, and for a whole set, it's like $500. That's almost the same amount as my real guitar, and less than my 8-string. That's crazy.
You just wanted to rant about that for a minute there.
Yeah, I was
just get that off your chest.
Yes.
Oh, well, earlier on we were talking about adaptive soundtracks. Can you guys think of any good examples of an adaptive soundtrack?
Horror games, but horror games are usually more linear, so they don't react to what you do. I mean, they do react to what you do in the game, but it's more scripted,
Did PT have a soundtrack?
I would assume so.
But it was
very, very subtle and very quiet and very in the background, unnoticeable.
Yeah.
Anytime you talk about horror game soundtracks, I imagine like a string quartet just playing constantly, and like it's just subtly increasing until eventually it's the loudest thing. Anyway.
I can't actually think of any adaptive soundtracks off the top of my head.
Me neither. Besides, no, actually, horror games as a genre do that quite a bit, but as far as actual games that I can think of that do that, I can't say.
I mean, this isn't technically an adaptive soundtrack, but like Metal Gear, when you're playing Metal Gear and you're going along, it's got mostly ambient noise until you get caught, in which case, all shit breaks loose.
Alright, now Xander, you need to talk about Batman in order to bring it around.
And then Barbie Dreamhouse, and we'll be good.
Barbie in the Dreamhouse.
Well, Batman, well, I guess the games aren't really known for their soundtracks. They don't have a bad soundtrack, but they don't have anything really, really memorable. Barbie Dreamhouse, on the other hand, number one for me.
That's the soundtrack I can get behind.
10 out of 10 for me.
I was thinking about playing Undertale, because I hear Undertale has a good soundtrack in preparation for this video.
It does, Oh,
I was just going to say I didn't have enough time, but what were you saying?
Surprisingly, I was actually going to bring this up earlier, but Undertale does have a very good soundtrack, especially for just one guy made it on a synthesizer on his computer all by himself, and he just sat there and he thought, hey, what kind of theme matches this thing, or what kind of theme matches this person? You have people who legitimately listen to the soundtrack just like they would listen to songs from their favorite band, because it's actually pretty good.
Have you actually listened to any of the music?
Oh yeah. And I watched a full playthrough of the game because I was so interested in what all the fuss and everything was about, and uh, there are a lot of good themes in the game. The game, though, although the soundtrack is mostly based off of themes, you walk into an area theme. You talk to somebody, they have a theme if they're significant to the story. Uh, you know, there's not really anything big or grand, and most of the soundtracks are 6 minutes or less.
I see. So they're all just, I guess, because the guy didn't have enough resources, but they're all very. Uh, we're gonna give a theme to all these things. There's no motifs or flexible
Right.
soundtracks or any stuff like that.
And
But
so many new characters come up so often. There's no point in having really long ones because you'll never get to hear the end of it.
a game with long soundtracks. Uh, Xenoblade had very long soundtracks. They're like 8 to 15 minutes long because the director wanted to, because the areas are so big, he figured that people would be spending a lot of time in a given area, and so he didn't want the soundtracks to repeat,
Yeah.
which is one way to handle it. Like
One other game. Oh, go ahead.
no, you go.
One other game that I saw had a really long soundtrack, and I was doing some research for this, was Nier Automata, the game that came out last year, and I've
I
heard
want
it's
to play
very
that
good.
so much.
And
I don't have
it
sixty
has
dollars
like
to spend on it,
six
but I want to play it.
hours worth of music.
Like consistently?
Yeah, like 6 hours worth of different songs. If you look up the full OST for Nier Automata, it'll be like 5.5 to 6 hours long.
Just listen to it for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
One soundtrack that was always interesting to me was I think it was Fury.
Oh, was that an indie game?
At least I would say it is.
Yeah, because that's the game where you were the prisoner and you had the whole game was just boss fights.
It like the gameplay is what really made it good in my opinion, but the music had an interesting element to it where but it was done by just indie artists. So like in the soundtrack, it's done by like every song. There's like 15 or 16. Everyone has an individual artist that they got that to do that one song.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I really appreciated the song titles because they usually tied in some philosophical way to if there was one for the boss. So the one where like you're fighting the dad while his like son watches, it talks about like what we fight for and how he's like fighting to protect his son. And then one where you kill an innocent child because you have to. And I think it's like No
Nice.
Mercy, something like that. Nice. Yeah. At the end, it's like you've come all this way, and then you kill the final boss, but she's ridiculously easy, and it kind of shows that like what are you willing to do to escape because it doesn't feel like it's earned at all.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's a cool idea. Go ahead, Noah.
There was something I wanted to say, and then I went online and I forgot exactly what I was gonna do. Oh, Pokemon. Right. Pokemon is interesting because I never paid attention to the soundtrack until I started listening to music while I studied.
Until 5 minutes from now, I haven't ever listened to it.
In about an hour, I've never heard it. But the thing about Pokemon music that surprised me was the music itself is repetitive, but two songs aren't usually alike, which is funny because most of the towns are copied and pasted from other games, but they still all have a theme to them. Besides, like the evil organization theme, those are usually the same. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's basically just you've gone. There's what, like 10 cities per game.
Yeah.
And
how many gym badges are there? 8. So there's probably 10.
There are more cities than that.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
I mean, like Black and White had like something like that. Anyway, no, but I mean, you have to create this sort of individual atmosphere for everyone, and with the hardware limitations that that meant you had to do it with music, really.
Yep. You had to create emotion through music. Yeah.
Kind of a contrast to having to compensate for a lack of sophisticacy.
Sophistication?
Sophistication, not sophisticacy.
Okay. So do you guys have any last thoughts before we close?
Video game soundtracks are good. Some
Yeah,
of them are more better than others, and we should continue putting them in games.
What's the best soundtrack, Xander? Ever?
I gotta agree with what I said. Oh, well, actually, no, I'm gonna disagree with what I said earlier and say Metal Gear.
Why Metal Gear?
Have you listened to the Metal Gear Solid 3 soundtrack?
No.
And then
That's the most like sarcastic and sassy answer that you could give. It's like why is that the best? Have you listened to it?
Have you experienced the audio amazingness that is Metal Gear Solid 3? No? Then get the hell out of here.
You aren't the host anymore, it's me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why does it go to you?
I was speaking.
Obviously, because I've listened to Metal Gear soundtrack.
I'll tell you what. I'll
Because I live
play
in
the Legacy Collection, and then we can have a Metal Gear episode.
Yes.
But does that mean I have to play the Legacy Collection? You're
No,
giving me
you're just
homework,
gonna be in
Noah.
the dark.
It's the Legacy Collection come with Metal Gear Solid 1?
I don't
Or is
know.
it just 2 and 3? Because I got the HD pack and it came with 2, 3, and then
Oh, that's the one
one
I was
other
talking about. The
camera.
HD pack.
Yeah. The Legacy's on the PlayStation, unfortunately, and that one does have 1 included in it, which I still haven't played. I haven't played 1 and 4.
Get on that.
Get on it, man. Jeez. How dare you call yourself an expert on the game?
$300 to spend on the PlayStation 4.
All right, guys. Let's go play some Rock Band.
Alright.
Yeah.
You know, you never asked me for my opinion, Noah.
You were the one who wanted to play Rock Band.
Oh, you never asked my opinion on the best soundtrack.
You want what? Answer the question then.
It's definitely Barbie in the Dream House.
Oh.
We knew this already, man.
All right, yeah.
I mean, like those wonderful sessions where Barbie is playing guitar with Ken.
No, fuck.
I'm
It's
gonna,
beautiful.
I'm gonna,
What's the
I'm
little
gonna
girl name?
ironically buy this game and play through it.
Better.
That'd be great. Okay, I want to do that.
Fine. We'll put that on the episode
We'll have
list.
a Barbie in the Dreamhouse episode instead.
All right.
All right. Thanks you guys for watching. We'll see you later. See ya.
Bye.